The story I am about to tell you happened to me this past summer. One day I was home alone and decided to create a profile on a dating app. I had used them before and had success. It was how I met my ex. Within an hour of creating my profile, I was receiving a lot of messages. One message got my attention. It was from a guy who we will call Greg. Greg's message stood out to me because he didn't come off like a creep. I chatted with Greg for a few hours before he asked me out on a date. We lived in the same town and the app said there was 5 miles of distance between us. I figured that we had chatted enough, and it wouldn't hurt to meet him that night. I didn't think meeting him the same day versus a week later would make a difference anyway. I met Greg at a lounge that was walking distance from where I had lived at the time. At first glance, Greg was great. He was handsome, well-rounded, and had a great sense of humor. We spent about an hour and a half at the lounge before deciding to call an end to the night. During the date, we found out that he played baseball with my brother in high school. Knowing that he and my brother knew each other made me feel safe with him. At the end of the night, Greg offered me a ride home because it was late and had started raining. I told him I lived within walking distance and didn't mind the rain, but he insisted. I took him up on his offer and we got in his car and headed to my apartment. We pulled up to my apartment and he told me he had a great time and wanted to see me again. I agreed to go out with him again, and that's when he grabbed my face and we started making out. Usually, I wouldn't kiss a guy on the first date, but I really liked him. Things got a little touchy-feely, but when I felt like it was getting too far, I pulled back from him. He looked confused and asked, "Is everything okay?" I told him I was fine but didn't want to move too fast. He said he respected my wishes and would move at whatever pace made me comfortable. He insisted to walk me to my door, and I finally said yes. We got the door, and after our hug goodbye, Greg turned around to walk down the steps. I opened my door, went inside, and attempted to close the door. That's when Greg reached his arm into the doorway and forced his way inside. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. "You're such a tease," he said, a big grin on his face. He grabbed me and pulled me close to him. I started yelling at him to stop touching me, and he just squeezed me tighter and closer to his body. I was still holding my keys when I stabbed him in the arm with one of them, then he let me go. I yelled for him to get out, and he did. I slammed my door behind him and watched him as he drove away. I immediately blocked Greg's number and never spoke to him or saw him after that day. It turns out he was a creep after all. This experience taught me that when online dating, you never know how someone is until you meet them in real life. I was so scared and too embarrassed to tell anyone this story until now.
I had been single for a few years and a friend of mine recommended that I try online dating. I was on the app for about a day when a gorgeous girl who we will call Lola sent me a message. She was more beautiful than any girl I had ever dated, and I thought this had to be a dream. I couldn't believe that a girl like Lola would even look my way. I think I'm an average looking guy, but if I'm being honest, I was always the nerd in school. I didn't reply to her message right away, mainly because I thought she was one of those girls who was just trying to redirect traffic to an adult site or something like that. She sent me another message, and at that point I just couldn't resist. I replied to her. Lola seemed like a nice girl, and we video chatted a few times. I finally asked her out on a date, and she said yes. When I finally met Lola in person, she was much more beautiful than she looked online. I'll be honest, her presence was so intimidating, and I kept wondering at dinner why she even wanted to talk to a guy like me. It felt she had read my mind because she told me, "You're really different than all of the other guys I've dated. I always liked the smart guys and not the guys who spent all day in the gym." Her comment really boosted my confidence. I offered to walk her to her car and she told she had taken a rideshare service to the restaurant and she would use the same service to get home. I offered to take her home and she agreed. We got in my car and started telling me how she didn't want the night to end and asked if we could continue hanging out. I agreed that we could continue hanging out and suggested that we go see a movie. She laughed and said, "That's not what I meant." She asked if we could go back to my place. In my mind, the night just kept getting better and better. We got to my house, and we sat on the couch and continued the conversation we were having at dinner. I went to the restroom and when I returned, Lola had poured 2 glasses of wine. Usually, I would be annoyed if someone went through my stuff and got too comfortable in my house, but there was very little Lola could do to annoy me at that point. After a few sips of my wine, I began to feel lightheaded. Realizing that I was sick, Lola told me to lay down on the couch, so I did. A few hours later I woke up and Lola had disappeared. My house looked like it was ransacked, and I noticed the watch I wore to dinner was missing from my wrist. My wallet was gone. I had set up cameras in my house a few months before. The cameras were slightly hidden and there was no real way to know they were there unless I told you. I went to watch the cameras and that's when I saw Lola drugging my wine. After I was passed out on the couch, she opened my door and let 2 guys in and the 3 of them robbed me. I called the police and handed over the video to them. They were able to identify Lola and the 2 men who were her brothers. They had done this before, but this was the first time they were caught on camera. The video evidence I gave police helped catch the trio and they were prosecuted. I never saw the stuff they stole from me again, but I was paid restitution to make up for my loss.
About a year ago, I was active on a very popular dating app. I won't say the name of the app. After about 3 months of online dating with no success, I considered deleting my profile. When suddenly, I received a message from a very handsome guy who we'll call Tyler. Tyler was about 5'10" with green eyes and brown hair. He was very adventurous, quite like me, and we really hit it off. After about a week of chatting on the app, we decided to meet in person. He asked me out on a date, and I said yes. It was a Friday evening and we decided to go out for drinks at a local pub in the downtown area of our small, New England town. We never exchanged numbers, most of our communication was through the app. I arrived a little early and decided to wait in my car when I got a notification on the app. It was Tyler, letting me know he had arrived and was waiting by the bar. The place we were going to was not very crowded. I could see the bar from where I was parked. I saw no one fitting Tyler's description. This made me a little scared, but I didn't want my fear to ruin something potentially amazing before it even started. I texted him to let him know I would be joining him at the bar shortly. As I made my way to the bar, I only saw a group of girls at one end of the bar. At the other end, I saw a heavy-set man who appeared to be in his late 30s. I pulled out my phone and messaged Tyler on the app, "Hey, where are you?" I wrote, "I'm at the bar," he replied. I looked up from my phone and at the bar, the heavy-set man in his late 30s was holding his phone in one hand and waving at me with the other. I was confused as he looked nothing like the athletic-built young man in his mid-20s I had been communicating with. Reluctantly, I inched closer to the man who sat at the bar. He stood up and walked towards me. As we met halfway, he said, "Wow, you are even more beautiful in person." I was so shocked, I said nothing but let out a nervous laugh. "Here, let me pull out your chair," he said as he pulled out one of the bar stools for me to sit. I didn't want to be rude by pointing out the obvious. He was quite polite, so I decided I would have at least one drink before leaving. Tyler mostly spoke the entire time we sat at the bar. He even mentioned how much quieter I was in person. While he was talking, I sent my best friend Cassie my location and told her to call me back with a fake emergency. About 5 minutes after I texted her, Cassie called me. I told her, "Oh my goodness, I'll be right there." "Is everything okay?" he asked me. I told him I needed to leave immediately because I had a family emergency. He said he would like to see me again. I didn't accept or decline his offer to go on a second date. He asked to walk me to my car, and I told him that I was fine to walk alone. He insisted and walked me to my car anyway. When we got to my car, he pointed out that the tire pressure in one of my rear tires was very low. Oh crap, I don't know what to do, there's no gas station for miles. He told me not to worry because he had a compressor in the trunk of his car. He pointed to the white Acura parked right behind my car. I wanted to leave so badly, but now I was stuck with this guy for at least another 5 minutes. I watched him as he filled my tire with air, then my phone rang, and it was Cassie asking me if I was okay. I walked away from the car while I spoke with her. When I returned, he was finished putting air in my tire and I thanked him. He then asked me for my phone number. I was too nervous to tell him the truth, that I wasn't interested in him. Instead, I gave him a fake number. He put the number in his phone, and we said goodbye. I was so relieved when the date ended and knew for sure I wouldn't be seeing him again. When I got home that night, I deleted my profile on the dating app the next morning. I went to the gym like I did every morning. I was there for only 5 minutes before I spotted Tyler walking in my direction. I turned around quickly hoping he wouldn't see me, but within seconds he was standing in front of me. "Good morning, gorgeous," he said. "It's lovely seeing you here today." "Oh, hi there," I said. "I didn't know you go to this gym too. I've never seen you here before." He chuckled and said, "Yeah, I just started here today." I couldn't believe it. I thought I had escaped this creep last night. His mood changed from happy to annoyed when he said, "I noticed that your phone is out of service and you disappeared from the app too." I nervously said, I deleted my profile. I just noticed I don't have any time for dating anymore." He said okay and he walked away. I was glad I told him I wouldn't be dating anymore, and he seemed to take it well. I finished my workout and left the gym, trying not to look in his direction. After the gym, I decided to make a quick stop at the grocery store. As I turned into the parking lot of the grocery store, I looked in my rear mirror and saw a white Acura like the one Tyler drove the night before at the bar. I didn't want to believe he was following me, so I naively thought that maybe it was another coincidence. I parked my car and got out while looking around and saw Tyler's car parked across from mine. He was glaring at me as I walked into the grocery store, but I pretended not to see him. I immediately called my best friend Cassie and told her what happened. She was very concerned and thought I should call the police, but didn't think it was necessary. After leaving the grocery store, I returned to the parking lot and Tyler's car was no longer there. The next few days for me were normal. About 3 days after I saw him in the grocery store parking lot, I ran into Tyler again. It was at a party that my friend was throwing at his house. This party was a small gathering of about 20 people. There is no way someone could have been at this party unless they knew the host and were personally invited by him. I couldn't believe it. What the heck? I said to my friend Cassie, who was also a guest at the party, "What's up?" "You look like you saw a ghost," she said. I told her that the creepy guy from the app was standing by the drinks. He saw us looking at him and he walked over to us. "Hello, ladies," he spoke. Cassie Cassie is more outspoken than I am, so she just came right and asked him if he had been following me, which he denied. Shortly after, the host of the party walked over to greet us and thank us for coming. He asked if we were going to introduce him to our friend, referring to Tyler, who tried not to make eye contact. Cassie told him that Tyler wasn't our friend, and before the host could respond, Tyler ran out of the party. We tried to chase him, but he was too quick for us. He jumped into his car and sped off. After Tyler left, we learned that our friend who was throwing the party had no idea who he was. That was when I finally was willing to admit that maybe Cassie was right. Maybe Tyler was stalking me after all. The next day, I noticed that my tire pressure was low again, so I decided to take my car to a local tire shop. After about 20 minutes, the manager approached me and said, "Ma'am, are you aware that there was a tracking device underneath your car?" I couldn't believe it. I called the police, and when they arrived, the manager handed them the tracking device, and they asked me if I knew who put the tracker on my car. I told them that I had an idea and gave them Tyler's name and described the type of car he drove. As the police were taking my statement, Tyler pulled into the parking lot of the tire shop, and once he saw the police, he started driving away. There he is. I yelled, and the police began pursuing him. A few days later, I got a phone call from a detective who informed me that Tyler had been arrested on a few charges associated with stalking me and placing a tracking device on my car. He must have put the tracker on my car the night outside of the bar while he was filling my tires with air. I wish I had followed my gut that night and walked right out of that bar once I realized he had lied about his appearance. If someone can tell such a big lie, they are probably capable of anything. I haven't seen Tyler since the police arrested him,